So I have to do two introductions for myself just because I'm here for two reasons, right? So Joe Perun, branch manager, M&T Bank, 22 years with the company. Also Joe Perun, co-founder of National E-waste Services.
And I'm Rishi Patel. We have several other businesses, but we won't get into those right now. Right now, I'm just co-founder of National E-waste Services.
So this morning we're talking about e-waste and the importance of protecting your business through e-waste. So what is e-waste? I'll just use the space button. So e-waste is a lot of different things, right? So we can think about our hard drives, our computers, our cell phones. Today's day and age, our refrigerators, our dishwashers, right? They all have technology in them. Our cars, we were talking about it this morning. So the unfortunate side is it's all collecting data. So our goal is to explain those things, our printers, our servers, cable boxes. There's additional items that don't necessarily collect data, but also contain hazardous materials, such as battery banks. So that's a little bit about what e-waste is. And unfortunately, we don't have the other slide that we wanted to add in here, but I'll talk about it briefly. PII, personal identifiable information, right? PII is name, address, social, date of birth. Photos could technically be PII, passwords, customer data, financial data, right? So when we think about that and what all of these items may store, throwing it in the garbage, not a good idea. When we think about having somebody erase the data, also not necessarily the end result that you want to have. So a little bit about the cause of the buildup in e-waste. When we think about it, right, you guys all know technology changes, right? You get a cell phone today, tomorrow it's obsolete. I love that old commercial, right? Guy walks out the phone, looks at the billboard, he's like, oh, it just changed. So that's one, right? Same thing, latest and greatest craze. Everybody got to get the iWatch, right? So now it's like, oh, you got to go get that and get rid of the Fitbit that you had, and and next thing you know, you need to have all of the other latest and greatest crazes, the Teslas we were talking about before. I got to upgrade to the new one because it's got all the technology in it. And then planned obsolescence, right? That's something that a lot of people don't think about, but not everything is not built to last. So because it's not built to last, you have information that's stored in there. Maybe the power cable went out. Maybe the CPU is no longer working, but there's still data contained in there. So what we want to avoid is that getting into the wrong person's hands.
Quick show of hands, who has a cell phone laying around in a drawer? Who has more than one?
Everyone since the start of when we had them, right? So some of the effects of COVID on e-waste, right? Because this was a big driver. So when we think about it, the transition from working to home, right? So you have all these places that had their buildings, they had all their customers and employees coming to this one location. They said, well, guess what? We're going to set you up from home, but now they have all this stuff sitting in an empty building, right? The liquidations
from 2008.
Right. The liquidations of some offices that unfortunately had to shut down, right? So they have, again, data that's in there. And now that might not be a business that's in existence anymore. So do they care about the data that's on there, right? Rise of gaming, storage cleanouts. We just talked about the permanent shutdowns. And I think this starts here.
All right. So e-waste. While most of us think it's just something that's in the way, it's actually very dangerous. In addition to all the hazardous chemicals inside, all of your personal information is on there. Real estate. How many customers, bank accounts, home addresses, maiden names do you all have on file? Probably in some sort of old tablet. Quite a bit. Technology. How many of you guys have just scores of customer data? How many companies that don't even exist anymore? How many companies that are basically just in their infancy and very vulnerable because they can't pay for the highest grade security rate? So it's everywhere. Now, that's just part of it. But the bigger thing is chemicals. All of these devices, everything you have produces chemicals. Who's had a battery leak out of a Game Boy? Out of your remote control? What happens when that battery acid that's dried up gets wet? Completely destroys everything, melts down the plastic, possibly leaves a little burn mark from where it was in your pocket. Now imagine that on the overall environment. It's going in your drinking water. It's going into soil. It's coming into your food. Microplastics are everywhere. Hazardous chemicals are now everywhere. Nope. Security risk. Thought you guys might enjoy this. I'll blast from the past. Now, back to what he was saying about IID. There is just information everywhere. Who here has ever gotten a call about their credit card being hacked or their identity being stolen? Anyone? Yeah? Everyone?
Who looks
Yeah.
like trying to spend money?
Who's got a call from a Nigerian prince? So your data is always at risk. Your bank account information is on everything. That it's on that device, that device, that device, that device. It's probably on your watch right now. Actually, everyone's bank account information is on your watch. You're a banker.
No. No.
That can even go into gaming data or anything. You put your credit card on every single account you can imagine. They can hack into your Netflix, they can hack into your Disney, they can get everything. Why do we care? From a personal standpoint, obviously we care about securing our own data. Everyone in this room has an added liability of your customer data. Not only your customer data, you're also your own company data, which trickles down to your employees, your vendors, your suppliers. Basically your entire supply chain is at risk with each and every one of your businesses. So what can we do about that? Well, we have to ensure customer trust. We have to guarantee that their data is going to be taken care of, and you have to reassure your customers that they're going to be taken care of. Because the last thing they want to do is not trust the person they're doing business with.
And then there's also a compliance risk, right? So some industries have compliance about data management, and not everyone fully understands the compliance behind their industry. So truthfully, whether that's something they need to worry about or not, an e-waste disposal company, that they're guaranteeing it, right? When it comes down to it, it's just a matter of the method of disposal and the method of data deletion, right? So when you talk about, a doctor's office, right? They have compliance with HIPAA that they cannot have that information leak out, right? When you talk about a bank, we have compliance regulations. Manufacturers have compliance regulations. I mean, honestly, I don't know an industry that doesn't have a compliance regulation, right? So why not, you guys know on the MSP side, those of you that are MSPs, but why not on the back end when it's all said and done, just say, all right, I don't have anything I need to worry about leaking out there. There's
Luckily,
also,
we're on Route 8, so no one has room to talk about environmental hazards. Sure the radium girls can all attest to that. So consequences of not disposing of your e-waste properly. Aside from, the customers being upset, your vendor suppliers being upset, there are actual fines and compliance issues that come from the government. You can be held responsible for the entire cleanup of the area where your e-waste was produced. Even if it's only a small portion of what's there, you will be held liable for it. There is a $25,000 per day fine while you're cleaning it up. On top of that, you owe the cleanup fees as well. Not great. That pertains more to manufacturers, but you never know how big your businesses are going to get. Along with that, you do get placed on the basically don't do business with list. This is happening all over the country to Chinese companies across the US. Because they're coming in, they're irresponsibly using data, or they're purposely harvesting data, or just, basically not following any environmental regulations. That is absolutely crushing foreign business in the US right now.
and then you also have the potential for lawsuits, fines, and improper data disposal. If your customer's data leaks out, who are they coming after? You, right? If the regulators say you didn't follow it, who are they coming after? You. So why not make sure it's completely destroyed?
Add a tip, maybe everyone add a liability form to your service contracts. Yeah, Proper ways to dispose of your e-waste, or more rather improper. Don't throw it in the trash. Cannot stress this enough. That's the worst thing you can do. You'd rather even just leave it in a drawer, at least you know where it is. Don't sell or store excessive amounts of e-waste. Because as it piles up, you never know what's in there. Those old computers do not break down. They were built to last. Like when we've been wiping data, we are seeing that, oh, this is fully intact, even though this is from before I was born.
And then lastly, contact a reputable secure e-waste disposal company that follows all DEP, DOD, and NIST regulations. One of the things Rishi had that nice little, these guys, that is also our contact information for the business. But one of the things we did want to touch upon, we didn't have in the slide also, is that there are data deletion devices, but those that are savvy in IT know that you can recover that information, right? There is acid-based destruction, but that's a chemical potential hazard, right? So just to speak briefly on what we focus on is we harvest the hard drive disk and we melt it down to the point where there is no recovery. So the worst chemical that we're dealing with is a little propane on a smelting device or electricity if we're using it to smelt it down. But our goal is to stay and remain as green as humanly possible. And that's it for the presentation.
Okay, thank you. And questions?
Is there any, I guess like paper trail when it comes to like saying you're hacked? I guess if you say if you're hacked regularly through like phishing operations versus like say someone grabs like a piece of e-waste and goes and you can hack that way. Is there any paper trail or is it pretty much?
As in a certificate of destruction from?
No, not from you guys. I'm just saying in general.
You're talking about
I'm
on like
just
the
saying-
forensic side? of it?
Yeah, like say, is there any way to?
It's a
basically
digital
like,
folder.
hey, this was a, yeah, exactly, like,
Yeah.
hey, like, you know, it's like, hey, this seems, you know, has all the symptoms of you. Did you throw out a laptop recently?
Yeah, so to that point, we're a little less on the technology side, more on the destruction side, but when you think about it, right, there's VPNs. So if somebody did capture your hard drive and then set up a VPN that was bouncing off of multiple locations, that's an issue that you're dealing with on the main side, right? So at that point, are we gonna be able to pinpoint to say, hey, you threw this laptop out? Unfortunately, probably not. And to those people that have suffered losses because of doing something like that, they're probably scratching their head at which vendor they went to, what online site they went to, not realizing, hey, I took that laptop I had that was 10 years old and threw it in the trash or put it in my recycling bin. And then the guy causing the harm came by and pulled it out. Right.
Yeah.
But that would be for a cybersecurity team. You would just basically hire a
Oh, yeah.
cybersecurity firm that they would backtrack.
Yeah, I was wondering if it's even trackable, like, is it?
Oh, everything is trackable. Just depends on how much money you want to throw at it.
If the government's involved, maybe.
How do you guys, or do you recycle, solid state M2 drives as well?
Yes, so there is nothing that we will not take and dispose of properly. We have a handful of ways that we do that. Some of it's proprietary because we want to make sure that, you know, our sauce stays our sauce. But yes, we absolutely do. And again, we don't go down the route of chemicals. So, you know, there's multiple different ways to go ahead and destroy it. And there, again, is nothing that we do not make sure that we destroy if it's physical. If it's in the cloud, that's a different story. That's for you guys, the MSPs that are here.
The data storage units on the devices never leave our hands. The plastics and the metals and all, we all dispose of responsibility.
What's the pricing model look like? Is it price per piece of technology?
So we have two different pricing models for our company, right? We do one as a flat pickup, depending upon how much is involved. And then we have another that we offer on a per unit. It really depends on what material is coming in. And also we try not to say no to any piece of technology. A lot of companies will say, no, we don't want the screens. No, we don't want the printers. No, we'll take it all. We'll figure out a way to make sure that it properly gets disposed of and also offering that security.
I just say that I think I take for granted like the impact that e-waste has on our environment. And I'm glad that you guys brought that to light. I think we live in a society where we're so worried about, data going missing, at least for my business, we are. So it's good for you guys to highlight that, what impact this has on our environment, drinking water, food that we eat and all that other stuff. But to Wes's point, talking about like data sanitation, like what we're doing to make sure that like our data is clean and we're stewarding it in the appropriate way, and then we're leveraging a company like you guys in National Waste to dispose of things in an ethical manner where it doesn't harm the environment, but we're also protecting it and protecting our clients. And you guys mentioned a couple things up there like DOD and NIST, and NIST is a framework and an organization that we know very well because they have like industry frameworks that we employ in environments that are really like suggestive actions that businesses should take to protect themselves. And they do have some pretty strict data sanitation policies that can really help like businesses like ours and part of this community protect, themselves from the consequences associated with having a hard drive that goes missing.
Mhm.
To Weston's point about like, how do you track it, right? Well, if we had a stack of hard drives here on this desk today and they were gone tomorrow, well, that's an incident, and that requires an investigation because something that was here is no longer here. And if something was on that pile of drives, like we have to do our due diligence to make sure that we know where it went. And if it went somewhere where it shouldn't, we kind of have to assume that somebody's doing something bad with it. And that's very serious. So I think that for me, and after listening to this, I think we need to suggest to our clients that they get on like a routine schedule of looking at what they have, in those cupboards or drawers or data closets, and start recycling that stuff and making sure that there's good, sound, ethical disposal of it.
So something we've had a lot of success with is for MSPs to suggest to their end user client that we simply come directly to them. And then they just deal with us. This way, the equipment is changing hands as few times as possible. It goes straight from them to us, no middleman, and then it gets broken down and then it's basically never seen again.
Right.
So reducing risk.
Yep.
And also, I don't think your IT guys want to lug around 200-300 computers, bring them back to your office and clutter your office.
The only one thing I will add on the data, just also, and this is any industry, make sure that you understand the length of time in which you actually are required to hold on to said data, right? Because banking industry, 7 years is a destruction time, right? So you don't necessarily want to jump the gun. So somebody may have, and I'm just talking about that because you said they may have it sitting somewhere. Hopefully it's secure, locked up, safe, something. But some companies are required 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years if they needed to be audited for whatever reason. So that is something.
Now, is that physical data or can that be cloud data? Like say if it's like,
Oh,
That's
lots of the
it.
documents?
no, I'm saying if like all the data is,
I'm going to tell you, if you had
Retained.
your data on the
Yeah.
cloud now, I can't speak to it as an expert because I don't know the regulations per industry, right? But if you are storing your data on the cloud, you have access to that until you decide to physically delete that. But it would be something that you would need to find in your industry. If you're talking about
Yeah.
physical hard data, which is what we're talking
well, I'm
about.
saying like, do you have to keep your physical data and then also like, say you already have that one for that 7-year retention inside of a private cloud or something like
On the
that?
banking side, if it's paperwork, yes. If it's the hard drives, no, because it's stored.
It's stored in the cloud. Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah, but that's only one industry, right? I can't speak to every industry. And as we've been doing this, we're learning more about other people's industries,
Right.
hence the manufacturing and things like that.
Yeah, architecture. Turns out they have to keep it for a very long time. I'll pull some very old things out of architecture firms.
Do you guys do anything with, like, there's a lot of precious metals on the motherboards and stuff. Do you do anything with like harvesting those?
That was actually how we started. We had this conversation. We were interested in that, right? But to recover that, you're dealing with corrosive acids, chemicals that can really harm you, harm the planet. That's not our goal. There are companies that specifically do that, and they have a warehouse set up, and that's their job, right? We'll leave that to them. Our goal is not that. It was originally what we thought we were interested in,
Yeah.
but as we started doing this more and more, just the fact to know that we're offering a service that's needed, and destroying data that could potentially harm people, and also doing it in an ethical and environmentally friendly way.
So after you break things down into their components, do you send stuff off to these other companies, like you're saying, for the heavy metals and the precious metals and things like that?
We have local partnerships that we work with. I say that because, again, we get solicited from globally, companies looking to acquire it. We stick with local companies that we can, not, again, incur additional environmental impact, gas to get it there, packing, shipping, things like that. And not to mention that we want to keep it within our US to hopefully not allow for anything to potentially get out there, because you know what, someday somebody might be able to figure out how to get data off of the little gold flake for all we know. And that's really not what we want to have happen. So yes, we do have partnerships. They are local. We work with them to make sure that it gets properly disposed of.
Everything down to even the plastic.
You mentioned something about certificate of destruction, or do you guys offer? something
Yeah,
like
so
that?
we offer certificates of destruction when you want, say, each individual hard drive recorded and destroyed. That's usually for much more sensitive data.
Yes, yeah.
Only the government really asks for that,
Mhm.
and then higher IT companies like maybe weapons grade manufacturers. That's the only people who have asked so far. Lawyers' offices, doctors' offices, they just want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
And-
not really interested in.
To be honest, because when we
Following
offer the two options, because we do offer that option, do you want a certificate? It's going to cost a little bit more because it's
Sure.
labor intensive, right? But the vast majority have said, no, we'll just
Yeah.
get it out of our site and make sure that it's just disposed of.
I can't really even think of like, as far as private companies like capital investment or anything like that, that's getting rid of those types of things. So,
Yes, so we do offer it though. We will make sure.
Really only proprietary tech. Outside of that, no one.
Really?
Yeah, so be careful about who you're
Yeah.
giving your data to, because they don't even request it from us on our side, so. Yeah, scary.
So that's a hack all its own.
Do you have different pricing for businesses versus like individuals?
Yeah, so I talked about that a little bit earlier, so to bring that up in the presentation. So what we do, state of Connecticut kind of requires for a residential user to be able to just drop their stuff off, no cost. Because of the business side of it, they offer incentive to be able to sign up for a program that we're working on getting added into. But truthfully, we don't charge residential. If you're a consumer, we take it and we destroy it.
We only charge for picking it up, not for destroying it in any specific way for residences. For businesses, it just depends on how thoroughly you want it documented. That's what you get charged for.
That was my question, was what do you recommend for individuals? Because I have a couple of computers sitting in my house that need to go away, but I don't know how to
Nancy,
properly destroy them.
it sounds like Nancy, we're gonna need to set up a disposal pickup day here at the chamber.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Hit that QR code, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can always check out the QR code and then that'll link you up to basically a drop-off spot for us.
Perfect, thank you.
And we all have drives set up throughout the state. And you can just drop them off at any point in time, or you can always drop it off at one of our actual dismantling locations.
And I will say there are companies that do the service that do let you know that they are repurposing, so they are taking materials out and using them to make additional computers and components and things like that. Again, that's not our thing. We're not looking to take it to turn it into something else. So just putting that out there as well, that there are many different offers of this service. It's just what are you looking for at the end of it?
What is your geographic area?
I mean, we want to, hence national, we want to be US wide. We will take on anything within the state of Connecticut.
Okay.
And to that point, I travel to Vermont frequently, so if I have something in Mass or Vermont, I'll pick it up.
The only thing we are going to be cutting service to is California, because those are some crazy regulations. But yeah, we keep getting calls for people for us to pick up LCD TVs. Yeah.
Well, California does tend to be an environmental leader, so.
It's a lot of gas to get on TV.
Any other questions?
Thanks again. That was
Yeah.
great.
Cool.
Presentation.
Thanks, guys.